Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here and welcome back. I might be a little out of breath today because we just had an accident on our corner of our house, which, not to exaggerate at all, we probably had 12 to 15 accidents this year at that corner. So hopefully they do something about it. But it actually got me thinking about what I wanted to talk with you about today, because the way that this whole thing went down with this accident at the corner illustrated perfectly what I'm going to share with you today, which is rendering yourself obsolete. So I've got 5 points, 5 things I wanted to share with you that are going to help you become a more effective leader. Now, before I get into that, I do want to make a very quick mention of our friends and show sponsors, Origin USA. They've got a huge Black Friday sale going on right now. 24% off for the next 24 hours on Black Friday. So if you want their gis, their rash guards, their nutritional supplements with Jocko Fuels, they've also got their built field work pant. They've got a denim, and I believe they have like a tan canvas color as well. They just came out with. They've got their hoodies, the heavy hoodie. They've got a heavy crew neck. They've got so much going on over there, guys. And if you want to support American manufacturing, 100% made and sourced in America, then head over to originusa.com. Again, 24% off on everything. This is not Black Friday. They're calling it Red, White, and Blue Friday. So support 100% made and sourced in America by buying originusa.com. You might want to check and see, I don't know, but the code ORDER, ORDER at checkout, I don't know if that applies in addition to the 24% off, but at a minimum, you're going to get 24% off. Again, originusa.com. All right, guys. So we're talking about rendering yourself obsolete. Very quick story for you here. I went downstairs after I finished a podcast that I had just done about 10, 15 minutes ago. And there was an accident outside. And like I said, we've had 12, 15 or so more, maybe accidents on that corner. And I went out there because I saw what had happened. My wife ran out there. My son ran out there. And by the time that I got there, which must have been 2 or 3 minutes after this accident happened, everything was taken care of. My son had grabbed a broom. He was assisting the elderly gentleman that was in the car out of the car. He had already grabbed a chair. He brought the elderly gentleman into the house where it was warmer, because we're here in Maine and it's getting to be wintertime, so it's cold out there. My wife had called the police. We had the broom. He went and got the cones. He set up cones so nobody would run into the car after the fact. Like, I got out there and everything was done. I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't shocked because we've gone through this, like I said, so many times, but I was pleasantly surprised that there wasn't a thing that I needed to do, because primarily my wife and son had handled it all. And this was a perfect illustration about what I wanted to talk to you about today. Now, fortunately, with the accident, everybody's okay. We've got a couple of people in shock. We've got one woman with a bloody nose, and the elderly gentleman is okay. Like I said, just a little bit of shock, but outside of that, everybody's going to be fine. Just banged up vehicles and whatnot. But the topic of today is rendering yourself obsolete. And isn't that our job as leaders? To put ourselves out of work, to make sure that the people who are under your care know what they need to do in your absence. Because, guys, you can't be there 100% of the time. And if you're building a team around you, whether that's your family or your coworkers, your employees, people that you mentor or coach, and they need you there to be able to run effectively and efficiently and deal with what happens throughout life, then you're doing them a huge disservice, and you're doing the mission, whether that's leading, again, your family, or the mission of your business, or the mission of your organization or charitable company. You're doing that a big disservice when you don't render yourself obsolete. And what I've seen is so many guys will cling on to every little thing, and they micromanage and they direct, and their team can't do anything unless they're around. And that's a problem. That's not leadership. You're actually hamstringing the people that you propose to lead. So let's talk about these 5 steps that you can incorporate into your life to render yourself obsolete, so that when you're not around, your people, your son, your daughter, your colleagues, your coworkers, your employees, the people that you love will be able to operate even though you're not around. Number 1, you need to know your role. Know your role as a leader. All right. It's arrogant. It's egotistical. It's egocentric to believe that a leader is somebody who's going to be there forever and that the people that you're leading are always going to look up to you. It feels nice, it strokes the ego, but it isn't effective leadership if they can't do things in your absence. You should be able to get to the point where your son or your daughter or all these people that we're talking about are going to go on to bigger and grander and better and greater things because you've led them effectively, not because you've hamstringed them to depend on you, to rely on you. We want self-reliant, strong, capable individuals. You know, it's funny when I talk about rendering yourself obsolete, people like to say things like, well, you know, as a father, you're never obsolete. Yes, I realize that. I realize that the job changes, the description changes. I realize the dynamics are gonna be different from time to time, and that as you get older and your children get older, for example, that relationship is going to change. But the point of rendering yourself obsolete is in your current situation, right? Like you should not have to wipe your kids' ass forever, literally and figuratively. Okay, and that's the point that I'm making here. So the first step is knowing that your job is to put yourself out of work. But too many men won't do that because they pride themselves on being in that position indefinitely. Guys, get over it. If you can't raise people up to replace you, to be better than you, then that leaves no upward mobility for you. Number two, you have to develop a culture to be able to do this. Again, whether it's in the walls of your home or your business, you need to develop the culture that says that I am replaceable, that I am working to replace myself. You want your quote unquote subordinates, we'll use that term. You want your subordinates to know that they should be leading and training and inspiring other people to replace them. This is a culture of rendering yourself obsolete. You've got to coach this stuff. You've got to give people permission to do this. They have to acknowledge and recognize and see that you're going to give them some sort of authority, some sort of opportunity to have some level of responsibility in their lives so that they can improve and they can get better, and you can improve and you can get better and you can have upward mobility, and so can they. But this starts with a culture. Is it a culture of selfless service, or is it a culture of arrogance and ego and pride? Because if it's a culture of arrogance, ego, and pride, nobody's ever going to get better. You've already capped. You're hamstringing people. You've limited their upward mobility and their upward trajectory. Or on the other hand, are you creating a culture of selfless service, of actually caring about other people, of actually wanting to see other people win, of giving them opportunities and responsibilities to do so? Create the culture. Know that this is inherent, or it needs to be built in as an inherent feature of your organization or your family. Number three, you have to decentralize command, as Jocko would say with some of the rules of battle. Decentralizing the command. If everybody has to go through you and all the decisions need to be funneled through you, you're a bottleneck. You're a problem. You're the problem, right? You don't have the answers to everything. You don't have the capacity to do everything. You have the capacity to do so much. And what you need to be considering doing is A, rendering yourself obsolete, two, creating that culture and understanding what your role is, and then giving people opportunities through your express permission and through the culture that you've created to step up in your stead. If people are afraid to step up because they don't want to step on toes when you're gone, you're doing it wrong. You haven't done this correctly. On the other hand, if people feel empowered that when you are gone or you are not able to make a decision, they feel empowered to be able to make that decision in your stead, that's when you know you're on the path to rendering yourself obsolete. And by the way, guys, this doesn't mean that your team is always going to get it right. If I have my child or an employee do something, that doesn't mean it's going to be done 100% correctly every time. And you need to be okay with that. Because if you want it done 100% correctly all of the time, you might be able to get that done to some degree if you handle it yourself. But again, where are we going? If you're doing that, you're capping your growth. So you have to be okay with maybe not everything working out the way that you want it to, or maybe even somebody presents a new idea that you haven't considered before because you're always looking at the problem through your own lens. Guys, decentralize the command. Give people the express verbal and or written authority to act in your stead. Not everybody, of course, but the right people at the right time in the right position, and empower those individuals. And when you empower those people, you are going to create and develop this culture of rendering yourself obsolete. I don't know, by the way, if you can hear the sirens in the background. Got the fire truck on its way to the corner right now, based on that story I just told you about earlier with the accident. So you might hear that in the background. So just deal with it. All right, guys. Number 4, offer feedback. All right. Just because you've given somebody authority to do something or to act in your stead, like this accident, for example, my son went through the scenario, he went through the drills, he did everything he needed to be doing. And when we're done, I'm going to offer him some feedback. Everything that I have to share today is very constructive. It's very positive because he handled it exactly right. The only difference today between other scenarios is that we had this elderly gentleman who was in the accident come into our house because, again, it's cold outside. We haven't done that before because it hasn't been cold. So that's one thing that maybe changed in the past. And so him and I will talk about why we would do that and how we would make sure that works. But everything else was good. Guys, you got to offer feedback. Okay. I'm not talking about completely handing over the reins of the organization or handing over the reins of your family and just saying, here you go. I wash my hands. It's yours now. No, you're still involved. And so this is intentional and deliberately stepping back and giving other people authority, obligations, responsibilities, opportunities, empowerment to do the thing. Okay. But you have to offer feedback so that they continue to get better, so that when you continue to progress and your children get older or your employees become more proficient at a certain thing, then that feedback is what's going to help them continue to progress, which leads into point number 5. And guys, this is the last point that I want to share with you today. I know this is a bit of a short one, but I do want to go help and see if there's any assistance needed on my part. Okay. Number 5 is you need to balance your involvement with your level of indifference. Again, I'm not talking about being indifferent. I'm not talking about nihilism. Like, oh, I'm done. Like, just go throw up your hands. You guys just do whatever you want. No, that's not leadership either. That's the abdication of leadership. True leadership is a level of involvement to the degree that you need to be involved, and then stepping back and letting your people lead in your stead, and then stepping back in and offering feedback and suggestions and constructive criticism, and then stepping back away and letting them do something different or letting them do more than what they did before because they proved themselves capable of the previous task or obligation or responsibility you assigned them with. But guys, you need to continue to balance, and it's moving, right? Like sometimes you're not going to know exactly where that line is between being indifferent with people and then being completely involved with these individuals that you're trying to lead. Feel it. Okay. Be intuitive about it. Acknowledge the feedback you're getting from them or the subtle cues that they may be sharing with you that are going to help you make the better decision about, now do I get involved or now do I step away? But ultimately, you need to realize it is a balancing act and it moves. It's not finding the perfect balance and then you're done. It's constantly shifting up and down. Back away, get myself involved, step away, insert myself into this conversation, stay out of this one, let people give themselves maybe just enough rope to hang themselves with, but not put anything in danger, any risk of the company or organization. Okay, now I got to get back involved and help them move things forward. It's a balancing act. It's very dynamic, and it moves and it adjusts and it pivots based on your ultimate goals and objectives and based on the maturity and the capability of the people that you're leading. So guys, know that your job as a leader, whether that's a father, a preacher, a mentor, a coach, a team leader, a boss, etc., is to put yourself out of the work that you're currently involved in. And in order to do that, again, you need to know your role as a leader, which is not to be involved in everything. It's just to ensure that everything gets done. It's to empower other people through decentralized command. Is to develop and foster and nurture and talk about the culture of rendering ourselves obsolete. It's about offering feedback as needed. And then point number 5, balancing involvement and indifference. There is a balancing act, and you need to find out what that is. Guys, the more you do this, the more you take this to heart, the better leader you're going to be, the more effective your organization is going to be, the more powerful the family dynamic is going to be, and the more successful your children and your wife are going to be. And isn't this what we all want, right? We all want our people to be successful, to thrive, to win, to be able to lead in our stead. And so as I think about what went down this afternoon with the accident on this corner, I couldn't help but feel a little sense of pride, actually a lot of pride, in knowing that my son handled himself correctly. And then also I felt good and affirmed that the way that I lead him and the way that I lead my wife and the rest of my children is moving in the right direction. All right, you guys, We will be back next week. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, a lot to be grateful for. Please exercise and share your gratitude for the people in your life in the wake of maybe a difficult year for some of you. For a lot of us, continue to share that gratitude. We'll talk more about gratitude in a future episode, but it is really powerful when you think about all the things that you've been abundantly blessed with. So keep a gracious heart. And also make sure, if you want some gift ideas, check out originusa.com, 24% off for the next 24 hours at originusa.com. Check out their gis. A lot of you guys are getting involved in jiu-jitsu. They just came out with a new rash guard. You can check that out there. They've got their built field pants that they just came out with, and everything else that you may be interested in, from denim to boots to shirts to hoodies to everything else. All right, guys, check it out. We'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.